This Friday evening here on Radio Merseyside, but we begin with a new series talking to people with more unusual careers. Tonight it's tattooists for the first of Kevin Way's People.
Captain's Log, Friday the 13th, 1769. Today, the men and I have been to paradise on earth, peopled with free and pure human beings. This island appears to me to be created in such a way that I bestow upon it the name Utopia. Tahiti is perhaps the only country on this earth where human beings live without vice, without prejudices and without eternal discord. As souvenirs, the crew and I have had ourselves drawn upon in the style of a tattoo, or tattoo, as the men call these decorations. Also aboard the Endeavour tonight, as my guest, is a prince of Tahiti, Omai, who I shall invite to accompany us on our journey home. How the salons of England will enjoy seeing such a decorated and an unusual man.
But tattooing has been around a lot longer than Captain Cook's rediscovery of it. Thousands of years, in fact. And let's face it, have you ever secretly fancied having a tattoo? Gents, that macho male strutting towards you with a writhing serpent on his forearm. Do you wish it was yours? And you ladies, when you see that elegant girl gliding past with a delicate flower on her shoulder or a tiny rose on her ankle, fancy one? Just a little bit? Prehistoric discoveries prove that tattooing, along with cave paintings, were amongst the first artistic expressions of human beings. In earliest historic times, their broad distribution can be detected throughout Europe, especially amongst the Thracians, Picts, Gauls, and Britons. Tattoos were also clan signs. The different patterns of the Scottish tartans are claimed to be linked to the tattooing of the time. King Harold, like all Anglo-Saxon kings, was heavily tattooed, and after the Battle of Hastings his mutilated corpse could only be identified, so they say, by the word Edith tattooed above his heart. The Romans used brands to identify slaves, criminals, and heretics. Herodotus tells of secret information conveyed through enemy lines by being tattooed on the messenger's shaven head, of which the hair was then grown back, which, when you think about it, isn't much use if you were in a tight situation, because it could take weeks to grow back. But then all the king had to do was shave off the hair and read the message. We're in trouble. Come quickly. Then during the 8th to 10th century, the Christian church strictly banned all tattooing. Only in Jerusalem could devout pilgrims and crusaders have a crucifix tattooed onto their arm to assure them of a Christian burial should they die. Around the end of the 19th century, a tattooing boom occurred, and more people were getting tattooed. It became a custom among the craftsmen to tattoo their respective guild emblems onto their underarm. So you'd walk up to another guild member and lift your arm up. The tattooing rage, as it was called, gripped the upper classes and nobles, and the King of Greece, Prince Heinrich of Prussia, the majority of the male members of the English royal family, would you believe, including Edward VII and George V and many others, were tattooed. According to the official autopsy report, the bullet which began the First World War penetrated the head of a snake, tattooed on Archduke Franz Ferdinand's body when he was assassinated in Sarajevo. And these days, well, you're nobody in Hollywood without a tattoo. Madonna has Marilyn Monroe's signature on her bottom, posthumously on her posterior, and Oliver Reed has an eagle on his penis. Tommy Lee has his wife's name, Pamela Anderson, on his, and MP Theresa Gorman's eyebrows are a tattoo. But my heart goes out to the Newcastle United football fan who spent months getting Andy Cole's picture tattooed onto his leg, and 4 weeks later Cole was transferred to Manchester United.
We came to town to see that old tattooed lady. Oh, what I've never heeded.
Now I've got you all enthused about getting a tattoo, and you're about to rush off to have Mount Etna erupting on your thighs. Where'd you go? How do they do it? And just who are tattoo artists?
We're ordinary people. Sometimes we have strange ideas, but then again, everybody has strange ideas. You've got to basically be an outgoing person. You've got to be able to be, you know, talented, easygoing, be able to sort of basically bend with the wind. Really, you can create a conversation. You can, with some people that come in, you can debate with them. Sometimes football, history, politics, their job, the love life of having problems at home, things like that. Basically, my bedside manner is I'd like to be jokey, very informal.
So now we know what a tattoo artist is like. Richie Curran is a fourth-generation tattooist, and his family have been in the business nearly 100 years, and Richie is the latest family exponent of the art.
Right now, what I'm doing is I'm sort of preparing for the tattoo, by which you sort of I set the machines up. My machines are American-based, but there's different countries make different machines. These are what we call colour pots, and everybody gets an individual colour pot. Once I've used this one colour pot, it gets thrown away. Nobody else gets any sort of second goes or anything. What we've got here now is they look like lolly ice sticks. Really, they are like nowadays they are lolly ice sticks, but they used to be sort of before they invented the cervical smear stick. They were cervical smear sticks. And now we can't buy them, so we have to go to catering companies to get hold of them. We've got the disposable surgeon's rubber gloves, that you should use anyway, because between sort of me and the client, this is the only protection that I have, is the gloves, apart from my hepatitis jabs and my tetanus jabs and my HIV tests. Me myself, I like to use swab bags to put the dressings into, so you have no problems with the disposing of dressings. To make sure all the needle bars and the tubes, because they're the only things that I do keep hold of. Everything else is disposed of properly. They're all clean, sterilised. When you put the print on, the client themselves, you can have a look in the mirror, and they want to change the situation where the print is, well, the position where the print is, they can do so. Okay? Right. Well, she's happy on that, so we can make a start on the actual job itself. Okay, we'll start up with your cake. Okay, start. It's not too bad, is it? It can be like a side thing when you first start at it. But as you go along, you slowly get used to it. You'll find it's not too bad. You can get into it. Yeah, that's it. Grit your teeth, baby, because you're not going to die. Right, that's your K done. The painful part of the body that we've found, she thinks it's the top of the leg, but there's a lot more painful parts. There's people that can come in and they'll ask for designs around belly buttons, on your bum, around your boobs. The thing is with sort of bums and boobs, the bigger they are, the more painful they are, because you've got to dig to get into them. There was, as in one case, there was a guy that came in, he had irritable bowel syndrome. Didn't tell me that he had irritable bowel syndrome. I ran upstairs. He's up there for an hour. He came back down, white as a sheet. We continued tattooing. He went funny again. He disappeared for another half hour. Tattooing takes some people in different forms, you know. You got to understand, people are different, you know. But quite a majority of people come in, sit down, get the jobs done, and go home, and they feel great about sort of what they have done. Then my great-grandfather started it out, and he passed it on to me, my grandfather. My grandfather was one of these men that was sort of, he could turn his hand to anything really. He had his own studio. He had quite a few studios actually. The actual tattooing itself, with my father, Tattoo Jack himself, he built the business up as regards tattooing itself. He turned it into a viable business for the family. But sort of, there's a lot of sort of lads walking around, a lot of girls walking around with my granddad's work on. He was very successful at what he done. But the family itself, we always have been very sort of, you know, interested in the art form itself. There's no formal training, it's just a thing where you're born into it. Basically it's a talent. If you've got it, you've got it. If you haven't got it, you haven't got it. Me myself, I'm fortunate to say that I've got it. He says with a big smile on his face.
It may be easy to paint oils on canvas, or even etch a sketch onto glass. And we've all seen the engravers working at the jewellers, putting initials onto our ID bracelets, and no doubt you can all do a doodle on a piece of paper. So how does skin differ from paper?
If paper doesn't move, for a start, paper, sort of, you can easily rub out on paper and you get things wrong, or you can tear it up if you want to start again. That's the difference with paper. Skin flinches, skin moves, skin faints, skin wants to get up and run away or smack you in the mouth. So you've got to be able to sort of know what you're doing where that's concerned. You've got to be sort of very sort of, you know, very patient with the person who's getting tattooed, because you've got to understand, yet you're doing the artwork, but you can't feel it, they can feel it. You know, so you've got to sort of, you've got to be patient with them, you've got to work at their pace. The equipment has changed quite a bit. The machines have got a lot smaller, they've got a lot more powerful. The more kick you get out of the machine, the quicker you can do your job. The sort of, you know, the needles have become a lot finer over the years. Now we can do a lot more finer work than what we could have done years ago. We can do beautiful portrait designs. A person that would sit in Nottingham and make lace, you can do like a lace effect on some of the designs. There's the Celtic designs, which have been around a long time, but we can now do them 100 times better than what the sort of, you know, our predecessors could do, because we can get a lot more colour into them, a lot more detail. A lot of people come into me with, you know, graphic novels, fantasy art books, album covers, pictures they've drawn out themselves, and also me myself personally. Every now and again I'll take some time out and I'll go around the country and I will look through various art shops, various different book shops. Shops to do like basically, you know, the Disney shops, the Warner Brothers shops, and you just get ideas. So, you know, you can find a book maybe, sort of, you know. There's a few I've got down here. There's one I found in the museum the other day. This one's all about Islamic designs. The Islamic designs are very similar to the Celtic designs and the tribal designs that's knocking around, but there's a lot more work in them. They're a lot more versatile. You use your imagination a bit more. Every now and again you get something that will come in and the designs that they're trying to get on, they're not feasible. I had a guy that came in, he wanted the front cover, the box off a Durex packet. He wanted everything, including the British kite mark, which explains to him sort of when you're a grandfather and you've got Johnny bouncing on your knees. He wanted to know what the, you know, what's the use of, you know, this ultimate gossamer that's on his arm. That wasn't the thing that was acceptable. There was another guy that wanted a recycling sign of a cardboard box put onto his bum, because when he died he wanted to be sort of cremated, so they had to recycle him. I had a gentleman phone me up, he wanted me to tattoo his testicles, he wanted me to put sweet and sour on his testicles. There was a girl came in, she didn't want to go on sunbeds anymore, she wanted me to tattoo her brown all over. It would have taken a lifetime to do, and it would have been very painful for her, especially when you got around to the eyelids and things like that.
No.
Nearly. Yeah. You've got your grey shower to go.
I'm just dying quietly here, I'd just like to know how much longer.
Sure. Cool you down. Nearly done.
Not that I'm not happy you've stopped, because I am.
Not too far, you only got about 5 minutes worth of work.
Oh, God.
a lot of people said you
Yeah, like this would-
yeah. A lot of people come in and they've got a lot of strange ideas. Don't panic when you're going through the worst bit. This is just your shadow now. The shadow will give it a nice effect. You want to make the design look as artistic as possible. Basically, you're trying to give like a gossamer effect. Back when my grandfather was tattooing, my great grandfather, would have been just a flat outline, the flat plain green, and that would have been your 4-leaf clover. Now we can add 3 different shades of green to make a nice 3D-ish effect. We can put a little shadow behind the design as well, and it slowly builds it up and makes it look like basically it's floating across the skin. You know, and that's the effect that you want to get. Now, because I just finished the guy last month. He got a design done for charity. He's part of I think was it the Rotary Club, and so they got done for charity. Instead of getting his head shaved, he got a back design. That was a beautiful piece of work. He got a red Indian hunting the buffalo with the sacred spirit in the sky, watching the event as it unfolded. Last week I had an 86-year-old grandmother that came in that got a design on. She waited 35 years to get a tattoo. She was a very charming lady when she came in. We had fun, we had a laugh. Tattooing is for anybody of any race, any age, any background.
Throughout history, tattooing has been seen as a serious business. In 1750, the markings of the inhabitants of Greenland, where the tattoo was made by means of a needle and thread smeared with soot or gunpowder and passed under the skin, so popular was this custom that mothers had their daughters tattooed to make them more attractive. By 1820, weirdly tattooed European men soon became an enormous fairground attraction, and they could demand the attention and interest of the curious, and also be interviewed and exhibited by medical and scientific associations, and their fortune was thereby assured. In 1890, the first tattooed lady, La Belle Irene, had her feet and spaces between her toes tattooed. The lady's body was crossed by bands of inscriptions bearing such messages as, "I live and die for those I love," "Nothing without labour," and "Never despair." Another tattooed lady is Richie's mum, Letty. Well, she's got a couple of very small tattoos put there by Richie. Would you let your son tattoo you? Letty has known the tattoo business all her life.
Well, I was brought up with it. I've not really known any other kind of background. I've been brought up with the tattoo, and when my dad was doing it, it was before he had his studio. It was in the front sitting room, and in them days you'd get men who'd come around after they'd had a few pints, and it wasn't as strict as they are now, but it'd be a few tattoo got going and said, "Be quick, get that mop and bucket," and that was my job. Get the mop and bucket and clean up here, please. They decided that it was time to make sure that, you know, people were going to get tattoos that were safe and there would be no problems afterwards, and they set up the Federation of Tattoo Artists. It was to make sure that nobody got an infection from the tattoo, because there is illnesses that can be picked up from tattoos, and years ago they didn't change the needle and they didn't sterilise the machine, so it'd be just clean off the needle and it'd be on to the next client. And for Richard and his dad, they have to be cleared by the health, and also his own doctor had to make sure that he'd had all the injections that he needed against hepatitis and other different illnesses that can be picked up. Actually, my dad never did allow any of us to have a tattoo. It just wasn't. I once asked when I was 18, "Please, can I have a tattoo?" as a joke, because I was allergic to penicillin. I said, "Dad, can I have allergic to penicillin tattooed on my arm?" I made a quick exit. But also, when I was younger, it wasn't the done thing. Women didn't get tattoos. You were sort of a bit racy. But it's called racy nowadays, but I'm not saying what it was called them days, but Women didn't get tattooed, and my dad wouldn't allow us. I think that's why I waited till I was 54 when I got tattooed. So I thought, right, I'm having a tattoo. The women are getting tattooed now, and it looks nice on them, and they're not like they used to be years ago. Now they're pretty, they look nice, and I don't feel embarrassed. If I'm dressed in something where my shoulders bare or my arms bare, it feels like some nice piece of jewellery. I don't feel embarrassed by it. I suppose years ago I would have, and I understand then what my dad meant. But now it's more artistic. And you also see really nice girls with nice tattoos. I mean, girls that you would never expect to have models. Girls from really nice backgrounds. And I think men also appreciate them now. Men years ago would have looked at a tattoo on a woman and thought, you know, not the dumb thing, but now men seem to like tattoos on women. I've sat and watched the men. I've watched men come in with their wives and they paid for the tattoo. I mean, some of them are in places where only the husband can see them. But I suppose that's nice for him as well, because it's what he's chosen. He's paid for it, and to him it looks good on his wife, his girlfriend, and it does.
In 1890, Samuel O'Reilly, a tattooist, adapted Thomas Edison's electric engraving pen to produce the first electric tattooing machine. And he installed it in a barber's shop on Chatham Street, where the Bowery begins in New York City. He called the space a tattoo parlour, the first in the United States and the first in the world. In 1893, Emma and Frank de Berg were the first tattooed couple, and Mrs. de Berg bore a reproduction of Leonardo da Vinci's The Last Supper stretching right across her whole back with the inscription, "Love one another," beneath it. The habit of arranging scrolls of words amongst decorative vignettes, flowers, hearts and animals became known as the American manner of tattooing. The pain and permanence associated with tattooing have given it a status in Western countries. To an American or a European, a tattoo represents a test of willpower and commitment. But now the laser can zap the tattoo almost to oblivion. The flickering beam explodes the indelible ink into minute particles which are then absorbed and discarded by the body. Black and red are easier to zap than yellow and aqua. Fair skin easier than dark. It can take 10 times longer to erase a tattoo than to get it on, and costs 10 times as much. After splitting up with girlfriend Winona Ryder, Johnny Depp had Winona Forever lasered down to Wino Forever. So just where on your body will you be getting your tattoo? Forget the hair, teeth and nails, but the cornea of your eyes can be tattooed for medical reasons. No? Don't fancy your eyes? Okay, let's explore the alternative places you could get inked. You can get any part of your back tattooed and expect to pay thousands of pounds for a full back job. But beware your buttocks, they are a potential sagging area. Much safer, ladies, is to go for the shoulder blades, which can be shown off at the beach or the ball, but covered at grandma's. And don't ever be tempted to have just a single tear placed near your eye. It signifies a spell at Her Majesty's pleasure.
Yeah, that's basically that's it. That's their tattoo done, finished, over with. She's pleased with it. Yeah, sit down again, we'll put your dress on to it. Right, what you must do now is you've got to listen to me carefully. This is the instructions part of it. When you go home, take this dressing off after an hour or so. Wash it down with warm, soapy water and pat it dry. There, so you're going to form a natural scab. That's when you get yourself your Sudocrem, Savlon, Germaline, E45 or Vaseline Intensive Care Cream. You apply them 3 to 4 times a day. You can have a scab that's going to last 3 or 4 days. Don't scratch it, don't pick it. If you do manage to knock it down, say to come back, not touch stuff for nothing. Be aware of the sunbeds, sunbathing and also swimming. And give it a chance to heal up first. And you'll be okay. Oh, and also no sex for at least 6 months.
And you can meet some pianists in next week's Kevin Way's People at 6 here on Radio Merseyside.